One of my main points in this is that I think that there are plenty of superheroes that exhibit Christ-like attributes that you can emulate. And in emulating Spider-Man's desire to take on responsibility, I think is an emulation of Christ. They're implying that superheroes don't have any Christ-like attributes that are worth emulating, and that's where I disagree. I believe, that since God is the ultimate creator, the very first miracle you want to say is that God created the heavens and the earth. God created. He made us in his likeness, in his image. We are creators, like God. And so I think that God can be seen throughout all of creation, even unintentionally, even by non-Christians, and even by Christians. So anyway, that's a long way of saying, I think in most cases, intentionally or not, you can almost always find God in some way. And that's what, I guess, on this channel, I wish we focused on more so. Hello everyone, my name is Holden Hardman. Thank you so much for joining me again for another video. I'm guessing a lot of you are just now hearing about this series since it's been quite a while since I've done one of these episodes. So let me go ahead and give you a quick recap. About a year ago, I did a 6-part series titled God and the MCU, where I take a look at this video, Marvel's Endgame, Secrets of the Avengers. It argues that the MCU is littered with anti-God themes, imageries, and philosophies, all designed to paint Jesus Christ in a negative picture with the intention of having you perceive God through a corrupt point of view. Going so far as to say that the films themselves, all the Marvel movies, are a slam against God. Now, I understand that not everyone is a Christian, and I also understand that this type of video may not be everyone's cup of tea. But as a movie lover, as a Christian, and all things superhero, I had to defend my spandex-wearing, super-powered caped crusaders. There are a lot more sort of fundamentalist type Christians that are a lot more easily swayed by this type of thing and even become very aggressive against it without actually knowing what it is, aside from what their preacher or Facebook post says about it. We saw the same things in the past with Pokemon, D&D, Harry Potter, etc.
Pokemon world is a world of the demonic, of the satanic. But while you might not take it quite seriously, I assure you that demons take it quite seriously.
And there really aren't a whole lot of sane Christians that really protest against this type of thing. Not publicly, in my opinion. I'm just really tired of these very loud, extremely vocal, Bible-thumping Christians that embarrass us and represent Christianity as a whole. So my message is this: not all Christians are like this. I don't know who out there needs to hear this. I don't care if you've made horrible mistakes. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what your political alignment is. I don't care about any of that. My job, our job as believers, is to love each other the way Christ loves us. And believe me, Jesus is a lot more understanding and forgiving than I could ever be. So if he can love and accept me despite my constant failings, I think I can give other people a bit of a break too. Sorry about that, Holy Spirit came on me for that one moment there. And for the record, I don't think these guys are bad, especially after meeting with them and interacting with them in person. I do, however, still disagree with the way they interpret and present the films, and I still think it paints Christianity in a light that is less than favorable. Anyway, I did a few videos on Iron Man, Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Avengers, but never actually finished their main video like I set out to do. By the time I got to part 6, I was covering Black Panther, and that was right at the time that Chadwick Boseman had passed away. So I made it kind of half tribute and half addressing some of the issues, and just sort of let it be after that. A lot of what I was talking about was becoming repetitive, and I decided to just sort of softly end it there with the possibility of returning and picking it up later. For context here, I will say it again because some people don't ever believe me when I say this. I am a Christian and I love movies. I always get some loons out there in the comments that insist I am not a Christian because I don't subscribe to their particular denominational beliefs. I really shouldn't even say beliefs, they're denominational views. You know the type I'm talking about, the type that always comment in all caps, but I know it's gonna happen either way. And I say this because I'm not just bashing Little Light Studios for their religious beliefs, but just in disagreement about how the movies, at least for Christians, should be perceived. I also make the case that throughout a lot of their points, they're either misconstrued or stuff is either purposely or accidentally left out, and that there is a lot of just grasping at straws. For example, one of the original points in one of the older videos was the case for I am said throughout Marvel movies, which in the Old Testament, it's in the New Testament too, but primarily in the Old Testament was used as a name for God. And so whenever I am is said in the Marvel movies, it is taken as a jab against God. And they would use clips like this to back it up.
I actually hear this phrase pop up in a lot of Marvel movies. So here's the phrase.
Well, to make it through that, you'd have to be the greatest pilot in the universe.
Lucky for us.
Just, stuff like that. So after we had a natural sort of back and forth of viewers and commenters that from them were coming over to my videos and from my videos going over to theirs, they actually invited to fly me out to their studio and talk with them live. So I decided to go do that. We talked for, I think, like 3.5, 4 hours. I'll leave a link to that in the description below if you would like to check out some of that. I got to meet them in person, hang out with them a bit. I love their studio. I've said that from the beginning. I think it's awesome. I spent most of my time with Mikey, AKA the middle guy. And we actually had a ton in common, which was really cool. He even showed me this big store with like movies and collectibles and comics, which was awesome. So anyway, I'm going to skip some of the Satan's Endgame video. I think the Black Panther one I left off about 45 minutes in. I'm going to skip their discussion on Doctor Strange and Captain Marvel, mostly because it's stuff we've already covered before, like magic, for example. Should Christians watch movies with magic? Topics like that, and we actually cover quite a lot of that in the live stream if you're interested. In the live stream, it's pretty early on in our discussion, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of scrubbing through that. Some of the stuff we talked about in that live stream is where is the line for Christians? Is God okay with things like Chronicles of Narnia, which is blatant Christian allegory written by one of the most influential Christian writers of the 20th century? It also has magic in it. Is Harry Potter the line? At what point in fictional fantasy storytelling is magic okay? When is it not okay? Is it ever okay? In what context is it okay if you think that sometimes it is? Is God really offended by something like Tinkerbell's magic fairy dust? Are there any fictional contexts where magic is okay? All that stuff. And Captain Marvel was some more of the I am type of thing, and they made some comments about the supreme intelligence, and you can sort of see where you'd connect that together. I can cover it later on if you're interested, or maybe we can just discuss it down in the comments below, but I figured we'd go ahead and move into some more meat and potatoes. In this video, we're going to pick up with Avengers Infinity War, the big precursor to the end of Marvel's Phase 3. I will probably be skipping some stuff if it's stuff we've already covered in some of those previous episodes just for time, and also to avoid some repetition, so make sure you go back and watch some of those earlier episodes. There's some good stuff in there. There's a playlist on my channel also in the description below. If you want to start, I have it start from the very beginning. And if you've already made it this far into the video, it's pretty long in already. We haven't really even delved into it yet, so thank you so much. I hope you're in here for the long haul because there's a lot of fun stuff we're going to cover. Whether you're Christian or atheist or something else, I appreciate you for being here, and hopefully we can have some civil discourse and conversation and fun stuff in the comments down below. Let's go ahead and hop into it.
You have this being called Thanos, who's the most evil character in the whole universe. He's the most powerful character in the whole universe.
Thanos is one of the darkest characters in the Marvel Universe. A character who can take on the entire Marvel Universe with a grin. There's something really arch-villain about that.
And he's specifically running throughout the universe and collecting stones that will give him that ultimate supreme power to be able to snap his fingers and wipe out half of the universe.
The Avengers Infinity War portion of their video begins with a brief introduction of Thanos to the Christian audience. He's extremely powerful and he wants to obtain the Infinity Stones to wipe out half of the universe. He also gives a very brief description of the stones and what they do. There is a little stretching of the stone's power and what they do, like here, for example.
One of the stones gives him the ability to raise people from the dead. I mean, these are attributes that are literally only attributed to God.
That's not technically true. He's rewinding time to when Vision was alive. They make it very clear in the MCU that these stones cannot be used to just raise somebody up from the dead. They cannot be brought back with the stones. It's one of the reasons that they couldn't bring back Black Widow after she died.
I get you miss your mom, but she's gone. Really gone.
As long as we have the stones, Cap, we can bring her back. Isn't that right?
Can't get her back.
See?
They're talking about whose side are you on. Listen to the language that they use.
What master do you serve? What master do I serve? What am I supposed to say, Jesus?
Dun dun. I love the sound effects. That they add those sound effects in.
That's, I find, extremely blasphemous. It's like, oh, it's a joke? Like, what am I supposed to say? I serve Jesus? Like, yes, if you're a Christian, you serve Jesus, and he died for you. To passively throw this into a movie, I believe that's taking the Lord's name in vain.
This is just my opinion, but I think that this is more of a case of just hypersensitivity. I think, and this is where I'm gonna get some pushback on this, but I think we become so spoiled as American Christians that we have no idea what actual persecution really is. I also think that Jesus had tough enough skin that he could handle a joke in comparison to like actual blasphemy. I understand that there is sort of a fine line, but if that's the most blatant by name insult in the series, then I think that we're okay. He then starts to talk about Chris Pratt specifically. If you didn't know, Chris Pratt is very open about his Christian beliefs. So they talk a little bit about the deception in Hollywood and how it's so pervasive that even a strong believer like Chris Pratt is subject to it and oblivious to it.
You have a soul. Be careful with it. God is real. God loves you. God wants the best for you. Believe that. I do. Learn to pray. People are going to tell you you're perfect just the way you are. You're not. There is a powerful force that designed you that way. And if you're willing to accept that, you will have grace. And grace is a gift. That grace was paid for with somebody else's blood. Do not forget it.
Heck yeah, man. I'm totally on board with this. As a Christian, I think that's awesome. And even better, it's real. These movies, these characters, the lines these characters say and the actors recite and memorize, it's all fake. It's make-believe. This was the real man, Chris Pratt, among his peer group, standing up in front of what I'm guessing are very anti-Christian, anti-religious people, and told them God loves them. Learn to pray. And Jesus died for you. What more do you want?
He was in the Lego movie as the voice of Emmett. If you haven't seen this, you gotta look at our LED on the whole Lego deception. But it was another attack against God. And here is an actor who's been part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is an attack on God.
He then describes Chris Pratt as an actor that participated in the Lego movie, which is, quote, an attack on God, and also participating in Guardians of the Galaxy, which again, quote, is an attack on God.
And he still does not see it for what it is.
Still don't know how to react to the claim that the Lego movie is an attack on God. Admittedly, I have not seen their video on it, but I did watch their portion on Guardians of the Galaxy and completely disagree that the movie is an attack on God. So that's where I'm at with the Lego movie. This man is using his fame, his charisma, his influence to share Jesus Christ with real people in the real world. Not in movies, not hypothetically, in real life. My Christian brothers and sisters, that should be a win. This is my own side note about Chris Pratt. I feel like Chris Pratt gets the short end of the stick a lot now, particularly because of his faith. He gets it from Christians here, and he gets it from morons that just don't like him because he's a Christian. And I do my fair share of criticizing Christians on the channel, but I've got his back on this one. Chris Pratt doesn't shove politics down people's throats, but because some people dug into his Twitter and found that he follows like Ben Shapiro or some other Republican people, that he's like akin to Satan, and people will whine about that. And they accuse him of being transphobic, which he's not. Even if, don't get me wrong, many Christians are. And there were even doctored tweets of his. So somebody straight up just edited it to look like he wrote stuff, saying offensive things that he didn't say, and people just believe it because obviously it's the internet. And even his non-Christian castmates backed him up, with Robert Downey Jr. even saying, "The sinless are casting stones at my brother Chris Pratt. A real Christian who lives by principle has never demonstrated anything but positivity and gratitude. The mark of a good Christian is that your mark on people, Christian or otherwise, is positive and loving, even if those people don't share your beliefs." I think personally, and until as of this now, this is the case for me, is that I think that Chris is the real deal. And it's such a shame and it's so frustrating that he's not Christian enough for some Christians and that he's too Christian for others. But anyway, back to the video.
So anyway, here's a scene with Thanos, and listen to the language that's used in this.
Find them, my children, and bring them to me on Titan.
Father, we will not fail you.
So what do you notice out of a scene like this? How did he address the people?
To his children.
And they addressed him as?
Father.
Father.
He brings up how Thanos addresses the Black Order as his children and how they refer to him as father. A few more kind of grasping at straws.
We'll never be a god.
He said, you will never be a god. And remember, all the Avengers, they consider themselves to be gods, right?
No. Thor does because he's a Norse god, but Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hulk, pretty much everyone else does not. They've never implied that either. No. But continue.
So they're basically like throwing it in God's face. This would be a description of God, and saying that you are never going to be a god.
They're creating the parallel that Thanos, in his quest for the almighty Infinity Stones, is a representation of God. And Loki saying this to Thanos is the same as saying to the one true God that he's not God.
Here's another I am that pops up in the scene that Thanos meets the Avengers. Listen to how he describes he is coming, and he describes himself as the I am.
Destiny arrives all the same. Now it's here. Or should I say, I am.
The fact that they highlight it like that tells me that that's so purposeful.
In the context of what he's saying he's destiny. Destiny arrives just the same, or should I say, I am. Constantly talks about himself as being destiny, ignoring his destiny, fulfilling his destiny. You can't just finger point whenever a character says the phrase I am. Context matters. I think a better argument would have been, see, he considers himself destiny. Who really controls your destiny? God, right? But then we'd argue predestination and free will, and then it's just too much, so we'll just move on.
This is a scene between him and his daughter, Gamora, and notice how she goes and looks at his throne, and she says, I hate that thing. Listen to this.
I always hated that chair.
So I've been told. Even so, I'd hope you'd sit in it one day.
I hated this room. The ship.
So he's basically taking her back to where he kind of like rules from generally, and that's why she's having this conversation with him. And it's in his ship, I think. And that's why she says, I hated that ship, I hated the chair, I hated all these things.
There's some discussion about how Thanos showed Gamora his throne room and wanted her to rule there one day. She says she hated it. They don't really touch on that scene a whole lot. I'm guessing because it didn't really fit into the Bible sort of parallelism they were looking for, but they do focus on the name of the ship.
So the ship that she mentions in this is the ship that he comes to destroy the world in, and it's called the Sanctuary 2. The Sanctuary 2 is a massive warship, play on words, warship, like worship, right?
Okay.
With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist, and I call that mercy.
So, he calls destroying half of the universe what?
Mercy.
Mercy, right? And so, that's not something that you hear attributed to the devil or his team, right? It's always attributed to God. God is the merciful one, but he's saying that wiping half the people out is mercy, right?
Which I believe, God is going to destroy the wicked, because who wants to live for eternity in a world full of rapists, murderers, It's mercy on his children. He's saving us from those people.
That's right. It's merciful for you to not live in a life of sin forever.
I think this was inadvertently a mistake because I think Mikey accidentally pointed out that God wiping out half the universe and calling it mercy is what God will do. I mean, he wiped out 99% of the world in the biblical Genesis account of the flood, contradicting Scotty's point that God would never do something like that. So the Thanos comparison is corrupt. Personally, I'm just looking at it from the film's narrative that Thanos is insane and has a skewed perspective on right and wrong, and what is just and what is unjust. So he's justifying an atrocity, more akin to Hitler trying to wipe out the Jews for the betterment of the Aryan race. To me, that's a closer parallel or comparison than a parallel or comparison to God.
And then what?
I finally rest and watch the sunrise on a grateful universe.
So after he destroys the world, what happens?
He rests.
He rests. What happens when God does come at his second coming and destroys sinful humanity.
1,000 years.
There's a time of rest that happens after that.
God rested on the seventh day. Thanos says he's going to rest. Parallel. They actually say there will be a time of rest during the events of Revelation, which accounts for more of this parallel. Also, and this really gets me, there is some out of context quotes and spelling here. Thanos says he'll watch the sun rise over a grateful universe, but they spelled it in their clip as son, S-O-N, like Jesus. In context, Thanos literally meant the sun, as can be seen blatantly by the ending of the movie where Thanos sits, rests, and watches the sun rise.
Thanos is looking for one of these infinity stones. In order to get the stone, he has to sacrifice one of his children.
To take the stone, you must lose that which you love. A soul for a soul.
Don't you find it interesting? He's basically saying something that is so true. Sin requires a penalty to be paid for that sin, right? And here, God sacrificed his own son to pay that penalty for you and me.
And who does he end up sacrificing?
His daughter.
They also go on to compare Thanos throwing Gamora off the cliff to retrieve the Soul Stone as a comparison to God having to give up Jesus, sacrifice Jesus.
He actually throws his daughter off and destroys her because he wants the power to be able to destroy half of the planet. God sent Jesus down here to die, your sin, my sin, because he wouldn't spare even the littlest thing in heaven. He gave us the greatest thing in heaven so that you and I could have that opportunity. So opposite of what they're saying right here. You are the cold-hearted one. The world and the universe has judged you and found that you love nothing.
Yeah.
No, that love was proven in the palm of Christ's hands as he hung on the tree. It was Satan that put him there.
He does contrast the brutality and heartlessness of Thanos sacrificing Gamora to the benevolence and love of God our Father. While I disagree with the approach and the perception of the film, I always love hearing about God's boundless love, and I think Scotty does a good job here.
Gonna sacrifice you, he doesn't care, he's not crying for you, that tear is not for you. That is a slam on God right there.
Same kind of things I mentioned in other videos. They attribute the story to a biblical retelling and then deconstruct the message from there. The whole video is like this weird straw man argument. Thanos is God, sacrificing Gamora. If Thanos is God, sacrificing his daughter in this way, it's insulting to the actual sacrifice that Christ made. I'm looking at it through the storytelling lens. This is separate from anything in the Bible. They also never really bring up the whole Gamora being a woman and Jesus being a man. That's just sort of, well, it's his child, so it's the same thing. This is its own thing. So to make the comparison through stretching and inferring is just not right. This is not a retelling of the Bible. This is one of the key things that we disagree on.
And so as a viewer, like you said, Kendi, as a viewer, you watch this and you go, yeah, he's evil. Thanos is evil. And you know what? That's exactly what I found on the internet. I read article after article about atheists that were literally saying Thanos is the most evil character in the world, and if Thanos is like a god, I would never serve that type of god. And that's what atheists are literally saying, right?
Yeah. Every atheist I talk to, this is the way they see God.
So I looked up the first article he shows, and yeah, Scotty is right. That author has some seriously unresolved issues with the church. Who doesn't? You know how a lot of Christians have a reputation of being judgmental hypocrites? The guy that wrote that article would be an example of a spiteful atheist that just hates Christianity. He says outright, quote, "Even if I weren't an atheist anymore, I would never be a Christian." Part of the point of this series is to break some of those stereotypes, to show that we all don't fit into these molds. That I hear you, what you have to say about the perception, at least from non-Christian circles, of Christians. Acknowledge it, and even admit if it's right, that not all Christians will toss you aside if you're gay, but also that not all atheists are God-hating heathens. But just because not all are like that doesn't mean that they don't exist. So make sure you be the difference. If you're a Christian, make sure you stand by it despite what maybe a lot of the others are doing around you. If you're an atheist and you've already made up your mind, your heart, that you just don't believe, for whatever reason, personal, something in your past, the way you think, I don't know what it is, but that you're still open to discussion and that you don't just hate Christians just because. A lot of Christians have different interactions with atheists or people of different faiths. For me, most of the atheists I've interacted with have mostly been agreeable or open to discussion. But that doesn't mean I haven't gotten my fair share of comments from atheists that want to insult me for just believing in God. Hold yourself up to a higher standard. Christians, atheists, you don't fall into those brackets. Whatever you are or believe. Christians can stand up to other Christians, and atheists can get onto the guy that's being a capital C to people of faith. The other article was just showing that Thanos has a Messiah complex to show a connection. A Messiah complex isn't technically a psychological term. A more appropriate term would probably be delusions of grandeur. Same principle though, in that the person believes that they are like God, if not God himself, or have some sort of special relationship with the deity that other people don't have. This sort of special connection. You'll see a lot of this type of things in leaders of cults. Luckily, Christians are often too wise to fall into this type of trap.
Birds propel, eagles don't propel.
Need to anoint your billfold with this oil for a financial blessing.
They said, do you own a jet? Yes. You can have it the day after the rapture.
If you want to learn something about God, shut your mouth and listen to me for a minute.
I alone can fix it.
I execute judgment on you, COVID-19.
See, I can make fun of Christians because I am one. Like how you can pick on your own siblings, but you don't like it when other people do? That's how I am. But anyway, doesn't Thanos fit the Messiah complex?
I'm the only one who knows that. At least I'm the only one with the will to act on it.
I think that would be accurate.
There's a reason why they call this programming, right?
Yeah.
This is a program that's programming your brain to literally fight and hate God.
No. Same arguments as before. We've been over why it's not.
Thanos ends up in the end of Infinity War. He snaps his fingers. Half of everybody dies. So it's like this end of the world scene where people are just dissipating off into the dust of the world, right? And then, literally, this blew my mind. Endgame steps on the scene.
So Scotty continues this while going into Avengers Endgame, which is where we'll finish off the God in the MCU series next time. I've enjoyed making these and the discussions that they bring up. I had a good time when I flew out there and got to hang out with them and meet them in their studio. They seem like good people. There are just key things that we disagree on. It's a biggie though, but I maintain that I feel and believe that this type of thing actually causes more damage to Christianity than it helps. Because of the logical fallacies, it just makes Christians look unreasonable and gives the impression that no matter what the thing is, we will always find fault in it, in my opinion. To my Christian viewers, thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear some of what you have to say. For my atheist and non-Christian viewers, thank you all for watching as well. I still hope you enjoyed, and I love your input down below too. If you've made it to this point in the video, I'm expecting many of you to have some thoughts and opinions on some of what you saw from their main video and what you heard me say too. So I'm hoping that we can have some civil yet interesting discussions. I say it every time, please do not go to their main video and bash them. That's not what I want. That doesn't help anyone. And worst of all, it makes me look bad. But you know the drill, leave this video a like if you did enjoy it. Again, comment down below letting me know what you think. Subscribe for more content. Make sure you check out my Patreon for early access to select videos and a bunch of other fun stuff we do over there. I know this one was different, but thank you for watching. I'll catch you at the finale of God in the MCU. Take care, everyone, and God bless.